So this video was inspired by Noah Samsen's Practical Guide to Leftist YouTube, and I thought it'd be a cool idea to do something similar, but for the Overwatch community. This is in hopes that, if you're new or returning to the Overwatch community, I can help introduce you to different parts of the space. Or, if you're just keen on finding out different creators to watch, this video can also help here too. I've made 5 categories: the educators, the entertainers, the streamers, the reporters, and the podcasters. I of course can't include every single YouTuber, content creator, or streamer, even if I wanted to, so if I miss out some of the bigger creators, that's why. Starting off with the community I'm in, the educators. The main focus of these guys is to simply teach the game at varying levels to help players get better. They may overlap in some other categories, and the quality and level of their education may vary at different levels, but they're all unique in that their main focus is to educate the community in how to become not only better players, but also better people in some aspects too. There's also hero-specific creators who focus on educating people on a specific hero, like Neandra for Mercy, Yeetle and Chasm for Ball, A10 for Zarya, and plenty more examples. But for now, I want to focus on the generalists. Crow is a rising Overwatch channel, pioneered by professional coaches in Asia, but marketed by a Western team. They specialise in analysing the replays of top 500 players, often on niche heroes like Junkrat and Mei, explaining why they do so well in their games. But they also make more generalist content on the rank system too. Their content targets all players and is digestible enough for anyone to watch and understand, with concepts that also apply to the top end of play too. GameLeap are up next, and they make much more generalised content for newer players and for those who are lower skilled. Things like tier lists, tips and tricks, and generalised hero guides really takes up the bulk of their content. Coach Mills, a former employee of GameLeap, also takes their style into vein as well, but it includes more discursive and retrospective content about the meta, how certain heroes are performing, and how to fix certain heroes too. CarQ, probably the biggest name in the educational space, specialises in hero-specific tips, seasonal breakdowns of new content, and myth-busting too, all presented in a clear, digestible manner, with every video being top-notch in terms of its production quality. Paz, who is also a streamer, also does content in the vein of GameLeap and Coach Mills. Tips and tricks to escape certain ranks are of course going to be part and parcel for educational channels at this point, but he also has some unranked GMs, being a top 500 player himself. And last but certainly not least, we have Spylo. It's rare that you get professional coaches doing educational content these days, but the result is some of the most digestible, yet high quality content there is. And that's saying something, considering most of his content is edited down footage from his live streams. He also does life advice too, which, from personal experience, has unironically been useful.
The worst thing that you can do when you're under pressure is to avoid it or be scared of it. You should go out and look for pressure. Make it happen. Be happy when it's tough. Be happy when it's scary.
Now onto the entertainers. This is the category that overlaps most with the streamers, so in order to be a bit more specific, this category mainly contains content creators who heavily lean into the YouTube side of things. Starting off with Special, he's best known for pioneering the 0 to 10 hour series, where he picks a hero and tries to prove a certain point about them. Whether that's to prove that a hero is good, why they're hated or not, why they're easy or hard to play, etc. SVB has also been doing this kind of content recently, but just packaging it in slightly more different ways, using days instead of hours. He also has a second channel, which is made up of clips from a stream, and don't really follow a clear theme. Some are tier lists, other are coaching sessions, you get the picture. Zebra is one of the many Doomfist creators out there, but recently blew up thanks to the Overwatch 2 boost. His content is mainly around him destroying lobbies on Doomfist, and he also streams too. The reason why I put him in this category though, is that his YouTube content just pulls crazy views, so I might as well. Next up is ATP Overwatch. He's one of the few Overwatch channels out there who make content surrounding the pro scene and the Overwatch League. Either making predictions for how teams are going to perform, reporting on players joining or leaving teams, or breaking down who the best players are. A great channel to watch if you're looking to get more into the Overwatch League. Noob Hunter and Blizzard Guides both kinda do the same thing, being that they clip the most popular and funniest clips from all kinds of creators and streamers, and they compile them into one video. Rarely is the content they make their own, but considering they shed exposure on more smaller creators, as well as keeping the bigger creators visible, their channels kinda benefit everyone involved. Marbler is probably a channel you've heard of by now. He makes content surrounding the intricate mechanics of Overwatch, going into the nitty-gritty details of why certain quirks are what they are in the game, but that's only telling half the story. Marbler's background in TF2 animation and SFM also lend a big helping hand in his content too, with probably the best production quality out of any Overwatch channel out there. And lastly, I have Andrew JRT. Being someone who's had an on and off relationship with Overwatch, Andrew uploads infrequently, but when he does, his content is heavily centered around mixing gameplay with commentary and comedy, with his editing skills enhancing all of those aspects. Now onto the streamers. 99% of these guys stream on Twitch, unless your name is Samito or Sneeko, but here, what these guys do is pretty obvious. They stream the game. Of course, there's 1,000 different streamers, so I'm definitely going to miss out a few that I'm sure some of you guys will comment down below, but I'll give it a try. Starting off with the bigger streamers, I have Flats. Flats is a top 500 tank player who specialises in Reinhardt and is probably top 3 to top 5 biggest Overwatch streamers right now. He uploads certain clips, takes, gameplay, and coverage on both his main and second channel. His spectating Bronze series, as well as his reactions to TikToks, are probably his most infamous stuff. Emong, who's closely related to Flats, also does the same kind of thing, but he's more well known for his diva play. Switching from tanks to supports, Elmo7 is most renowned for that. He specialises in Ana, but plays all supports to a high degree, doing surface level education on his main channel from time to time, but more often than not, most of his content on his YouTube are clips from his best games. J3 is probably one of the biggest yet most unique streamers out there. His YouTube in particular features him spectating and pitting certain ranks against each other, from golds to bronzes to top 500 players. He also did an experiment between the best console players out there and a contender's PC team that now has 1 million views to date. Now on to Super TF. Super is more of a variety streamer, with Overwatch being the main game. His editor, Steffe, does a great job at clipping the funniest and most interesting parts of the stream, compiling them into comedic and entertaining videos. The one on Johnny G was a perfect example. Lastly, I want to cover Question. You may not have heard this guy, but I wanted to include him since he's very unique. He specialises in Sombra, but that's not the best bit of the stream. His best parts are the hyper-edited skits he plays throughout, which, considering how difficult it is to include editing in a live stream, Question really makes himself stand out from the crowds. Now there's a bunch more streamers out there. Chipser and Get Quicked On, who specialise in Doomfist, A10, who specialises in Zarya, Boga, who specialises in Winston, Argay, who specialises in Hanzo, Kefri, who specialises in Widowmaker, Craggy, who specialises in Tracer, Holy Shift Kid, who specialises in Brig, Metro, who specialises in Soldier, Six, who used to specialise in Hog, and so many more. This is definitely the biggest category out there, so if you're new to it, I recommend normalising yourself with the bigger creators first, then specialising in a handful of creators who may play the same heroes that you do too. Essentially, there's a streamer for everyone. Now onto the penultimate category of reporters. This is mainly made up of your Overwatch, Stylosa, Master Ian Gamer, and Bro You Whack. The role of these creators, or the purpose rather, is to report on any Overwatch news or content updates, especially if they have early access, meaning that they can report on something way before everyone else. Stylosa and your Overwatch are great examples of this. After learning that the money is in reporting and not in education, they both centre around informing people of developer updates, giving takes on new heroes, talking about patch notes, abilities and reworks, as well as things that are happening outside of Overwatch, like to do with Microsoft and Activision. It's kinda hard to distinguish what makes these channels unique from one another, apart from their different perspectives around the game and their unique individual takes. It's interesting to see what each of them think about the game, but if you just want the information and the news, then you could honestly pick any of these channels. Now onto the final and, in my opinion, the most interesting category, the podcasters. Here we have 5 main contenders: the Platchat podcast, the Group Up podcast, the Tactical Crouch podcast, GG Recon Overwatch, and Overview. Starting off with the most popular, we have Platchats. Simply put, this is where a group of 4 white millennials talk about the Overwatch League each week. Not only is their podcast unique in that it's about the Overwatch League, but it's the chemistry between each of these guys that carry the podcast and make you want to keep watching. Unfortunately, 2 of the figures, Sideshow and Bren, who are arguably the most entertaining members with the most chemistry, have been more involved in the Valorant scene, but they've certainly had their moments with the Overwatch community.
52 seconds ago, esports is the future, but it's not going to invent itself. Jade is going to invent esports!
As with any good podcast, you can listen to these guys on Spotify. Next up is SVB's Group Up podcast. This follows a less strict schedule compared to Platchat, but that doesn't mean it's any worse. SV brings on an array of different guests to talk about a specific issue or Overwatch topic. It could either be a hero, role, issue with the game, pretty much anything Overwatch related. Just like with the Platchat podcast, you can tune in on Spotify. The Tactical Crouch podcast, run by Volumel, Avril, and Yiska, helped give Platchat a run for their money. The topics around their podcast remain pretty similar to Platchat, but they still remain unique by cutting out the fat and trying to give the best takes they can possible. Again, they're on Spotify. Afterwards, I have GG Recon Overwatch. These guys are less so a podcast, more than they are a news channel, but they're unique in that Yiska, one of the people at GG Recon, run these really insightful interviews with Pro League players and coaches. If you're looking to really gain some insight into the Pro League, this is your go-to. And lastly, we have kind of a curveball in Overview. Overview does the same kind of thing as Yiska, but the interviews are often way more candid and vary a lot more in length. From YouTube shorts to a few minutes to over half an hour. If you're really looking to get into the scene, not just in the Overwatch League, but also Pro League in general, then this guy offers something unique that not everyone else does. And that's it for your practical guide on Overwatch content creators. Of course, for the sake of time and practicality, I have to miss a few creators and not fully go into detail, but this should be a good rundown, either if you're new to the Overwatch scene, or if you're fully embellished in it. Shout out to my tier 1 Patreons, Tyler Bishop and Remy Kane, and if you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and tag along with the channel too. Until next time.